Thank you for joining us. Today, we're excited to bring you a brand new show from the Onramp Media umbrella. Wakeup Call is a weekly show that will be streamed live on LinkedIn every Monday morning. To catch the premiere of each episode, follow Onramp's LinkedIn page and add Wakeup Call events to your calendar. After the live premiere on LinkedIn, we will distribute each episode across Onramp Media's podcast channels and YouTube page. Wakeup Call aims to educate financial professionals on the merits of the Bitcoin investment thesis, how this asset represents both a threat to legacy financial service businesses and an opportunity to differentiate oneself and retain and attract new clients. Hosted by Mark Connors, Onramp's head of global macro strategy, and Rich Kerr, Onramp's president of managed wealth, this show seeks to provide financial professionals the wake-up call they need, prompt them to have an open mind with respect to Bitcoin, rethink their prior assumptions, become more educated on the topic, and learn from others who are already farther down this path. Mark and Rich bring a combined 60-plus years of experience across traditional markets and financial services, and will share their unique perspectives in how their peers and colleagues can approach the realm of Bitcoin. Wake Up Call will feature guests from various backgrounds and industries who will also share their own journeys to Bitcoin and how others can get up to speed. Now, time for the show.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Rich Kerr, and I'm the president of Onramp Bitcoin's Managed Wealth Group. It is a pleasure to be here with you all today on our inaugural wake-up call, which aims to help institutions, wealth advisors, pension plans, other financial professionals in the traditional finance space to think through why Bitcoin. And so we'll explore with our guests that we will have different topics that help you develop that Bitcoin thesis and recognize the threats and opportunities that Bitcoin presents to our industry, and at the same point in time, even explore current events, capital markets, and industries. And so, that being said, I'd like to just kick it over to my co-host, Mr. Mark Connors, to maybe share a little bit about himself.
Rich, thanks a lot for that intro. And yes, both Rich and I are very excited. We joined Onramp recently, taking our 3 decades plus of experience in traditional markets to highlight what we think is the biggest opportunity in our careers, and that is Bitcoin, and what it can mean for your investment portfolio. You know, we'll go into a lot on, as you said, current events, but I think for this call, the reason we would like you to join live is we want to kick off, talk about what happened last week, what's happening today, and give context to the markets. So before I hand it back to Rich, I'll give you a little bit about my background. I've been in capital markets for a little over 30 years, grew up in the convert market, credit, and then went into the hedge fund world before sort of settling into a chief risk officer and strategy role, taking in the broader market because I wanted to really give context to the mistakes I made in my career so I don't make them anymore. And with that is really how I found Bitcoin, looking at broader shifts in regime changes in the marketplace. And I think for today, we're going to drop a few nuggets about why we'd like you to be on the call and really what's going on in the markets as on the equity side, and then obviously touch on briefly the tragedy that happened over the weekend with the assassination attempt on President Trump and what that has to do with markets. And Rich, back to you on those broader themes or where you want to take us today.
Yeah, no, I think the elephant in the room obviously is the events of the weekend, but you hit on some of your great strengths and what you bring, and my hope is that I complement those a little bit. You know, my entire career has been working with high net worth, ultra high net worth individual investors, registered investment advisors who serve that population, and also leading wealth advisory spaces inside of Schwab. I spent 31 years there working with both the retail clients as well as the institutional clients and helping the RIAs and independent trust companies and broker dealers that I serve helping them really grow, compete, and succeed in their marketplace. And so, I still aim to do that today. My hope is that we can have real conversations around Bitcoin, the disruption that it represents to our broader financial systems globally. And we'll pull different threads along the way that I think everybody should be paying attention to. But Mark, you really kind of touched on it. Obviously, very, very concerning events that unfolded this weekend in Butler, Pennsylvania, at a President Trump campaign rally. Those situations, regardless of where you stand politically, are very, very deeply concerning. And so you kind of teased, Mark, that
Well,
that
I'm going
those
to
have
pull, Rich, what
implications.
you said earlier about threads and globally. So we're going to stay in our lane, guys, about what we do for a living. We're markets and we're industry. And one of the first things we noticed from a market standpoint, again, we're going to talk about how we can help your business grow given what's going on. Very dynamic period. And we'll talk about some of those metrics we use to make that bold statement. Global, the word you use, Rich. Bitcoin's a global asset. Soon after, on Saturday, we saw Bitcoin's price rise. It was the first indicator in the market that, with Asia closed, that something was afoot. Trump's poll numbers, wherever you go, rose after that event. Trump's been an advocate of Bitcoin. He's going to the Nashville event, which we'll be at as well, and he's going to speak there. First time last year we had Kennedy go. This year we're having Trump go to the Bitcoin conference. Bitcoin's up over 10% since Friday's close. So again, it's a global asset. It's being adopted by it. That's why we're excited about Bitcoin. Let me back up. That's not why we're excited about Bitcoin. That's just further evidence from the markets that something that there's more adoption going on. But let's roll back a little bit. Rich and I were in the green room, talking beforehand about how we're going to do this and what we want to get out for you. What we want to do is frame that Bitcoin has a place in a portfolio. We're going to give you data about that. And then also on the industry side, with Rich being at Schwab for decades and dealing with RIAs, they've had to, as an RIA, a business owner, take on new assets and, like a pitcher on the mound, either wave off the pitch coming to them or say, yes, I'm coming at you with more tech focused that worked for them in the 90s and 2000s. I'm going to wave off maybe some of the structured products in 07, 08, which if they wave that off, their product, they did very well. So how to discern? So Rich, to you the question is, Bitcoin's only $1.5 trillion. It's going up by the minute here, but it's only $1.5 trillion against a $900 trillion opportunity set. Are there examples that you've seen about how advisors have made good calls? What is their process, and how would they even start to understand Bitcoin?
Well, I think that's a deep question, and I think it varies. How
We're not going
how
easy here, Rich.
Yeah, I know, but it varies from firm to firm, and everybody develops an investment philosophy and a thesis around the securities that they bring forward into their portfolios on behalf of their clients. I think one of the biggest challenges for Bitcoin, but it also one of the great blessings in many ways, is Bitcoin was born organically almost, right? You had early, tech people, engineers, and cypherpunks and gamers and people that kind of found Bitcoin and it spoke to them, and then they started studying it and going down the rabbit hole. And so it grew very grassroots, where an individual was actually, accessing Bitcoin on their own and mining it, and ultimately, you have this massive percentage of individuals who are actual owners across the globe with Bitcoin. Institutions have been at bay, right? And part of the reason is they're looking at it and saying, well, wait a second, it's a different monetary system entirely. It's a different monetary policy than what we are accustomed to teaching and educating our clients around. And so there's no wonder why here we are in 15 years in existence of Bitcoin, that institutions are just now starting to kind of wake up and develop those theses, and for good reason, because I think that it is one of the conversations of the day, if not one of the most important conversations, in my opinion. And so as clients start asking questions of their advisors, as pensioners start asking questions of those who are managing their pensions, all of a sudden that groundswell forces institutions into developing a thesis and really, serving their client as the trusted advisor that they have been and strive to be. And so if you don't have questions, or if you don't have the answers, you better go get them, at least it's my belief, because ultimately, if you are not the one who is educating your clients and helping them understand why you're doing what you're doing with the portfolio, or why you're choosing not to integrate Bitcoin into your portfolio after a 15-year track record that has dominated every other asset class, then you're going to ultimately lose the trust that you've worked so hard to establish. They may love you, they may value the relationship, they may value the planning and care, but somebody is going to provide the expertise. And so,
So Rich,
build
on that point about the expertise and about if you don't, someone else will. I want to go back to the analogy about the pitcher on the mound, and the RIA or the advisor is on the mound and they're looking for calls on what to throw at their client, just to see how they can serve up the best opportunity. Where are they getting their signals from? I mean, this is not a big asset. You and I, and we will touch on, we'll have enough time to touch on maybe some of the breadcrumbs that we can spread that brought us into the fold about why we think it's important. But where's an RIA going for it? And how could they be accelerated? Are they only going to the wirehouses because the wirehouses are providing services because they want to have trading and all that, extra support, so they're trying to get business from them? And are we going to have to wait till the wirehouses turn on?
Not necessarily. I do think that your point is well taken, right? There is research that registered investment advisors do receive from various institutions that help form their thesis and their investment philosophies. But you also have to understand the culture of the registered investment advisory population. Yes, they are in competition with one another, but it's a highly collegial group of people. And so, I think in many respects, most advisors that I, had worked with along the way, they collaborate with one another. They talk openly about what they're doing on behalf of clients. They're very proud, and they're also very intellectually curious. And that's why I believe that the RIA is actually perfectly suited, or that's one of the beliefs why the RIA is perfectly suited, because they collaborate so well with one another about what they are doing. They don't, they have healthy conversations and discord around how they go about doing things, and there are differentiations from one firm to the next. But they're always collaborating, always talking with one another, and are very well aware of opportunities that they might need to explore to remain relevant in the conversation in their marketplace and the clients that they serve, but at the same point in time to do well, right? To do well by their clients. And so,
Yep.
I'm in the process of writing a paper, and it should be released here in the not too distant future. But it talks a lot about disruptors, Mark. and it ties to your bigger, broader question: how do they come to things? But I think it's important to recognize the patterns of disruption in Wall Street, right? So obviously, I was fortunate enough to work at Charles Schwab. I view that Charles Schwab in 1973 made a critical decision, and in 74 launched the business and um, and was a massive disruptor to traditional Wall Street and the high commission structures and creating ease of access and things on that nature. That disruption was enormous. The next big disruption in my mind in our industry was the RIA, really emerging in the 1990s in a fairly profound and significant way, and in through the early 2000s. They brought a different way of working with clients, a fiduciary standard, transparency in the way that they price their services, incentive alignment around how they price those services. They win when the client wins, and clients, while they may not be able to quickly say what a fiduciary is, they certainly feel it and experience it, and it's in alignment with what they're looking for, because everybody comes to the table with a little bit of baggage from the traditional finance industry, and they're looking for a solution, both relational as well as portfolio. And so if you look at the disruption trends, I believe wholeheartedly the biggest disruptor is knocking on our door, and it's in the form of Bitcoin. It's going to change the way that we think about money.
At Onramp, we believe that Bitcoin is the most important asset of the 21st century. The hard part is securing it right. There are shortcomings with keeping your coins on an exchange, but also with setting up your own self-custody arrangement. Onramp solves for these concerns. Our multi-institution custody solution maximizes security and minimizes counterparty risk, ensuring that your Bitcoin remains securely in your possession, and provides built-in inheritance planning to ensure your family is protected as well. Onramp provides peace of mind for your Bitcoin journey, whether for your whole stack or for part of it as a complement to your existing self-custody setup. For more information, check us out at onrampbitcoin.com.
When you were do you mind if I just pull on that, what you just said there about the disruptors? And you said solutions. And when I think of Wall Street, and we just wrote about this, I think of Wall Street just wrapping anything. They're like, give me anything between two pieces of bread and I'll eat it. So they'll, in the 90s or 80s, when bond prices or yields were high, they created the zero coupon strip, which was a great product. It allows clients to lock in 10% returns for 30 years and, quadruple their money plus. And so good wrapper. The ETF arguably has been a good product, and we'll talk about why it may not be great for Bitcoin for many people. And so they created a product. You said solutions. And so I think that's where folks like us, that's why you and I joined Onramp, is because Bitcoin does not need Wall Street. It does not need a wrapper, and it is diminished with a wrapper. So back to you on do RIAs get that they don't need the product, but they need the solution?
I don't know that I could tell you that. It's a great conversation, because Mark, you're right, right? Traditionally traditional services firms productize everything. Everything's a product. Problem, product. Problem, product. Problem, offer. And I think in many regards, you're right. Bitcoin does not need Wall Street. But Wall Street
has the cash. Wall Street has the clients.
Yeah, Wall Street has a cash. And so, you have to understand the reality of where we are today. But more importantly, I think I said this in a podcast last week. You could go the old cocktail party, theme, Mark. You go to a cocktail party and everybody's talking about, in the 90s, everybody's talking about Cisco systems and, you know, you name it. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Intel or, you know, any number of semiconductor stocks or whatever it might be, right? Everybody's talking about an individual stock or whatever, the hot stock. While I don't go to cocktail parties per se, I, certainly, socialize with friends and the nature of the conversation is much more serious. It's around geopolitical events. It's around uh, inflationary situations and how the inflation data doesn't make sense to the normal person because they know very well just by running a simple budget exercise, how significantly the cost of services and groceries and goods have gone up, and it's not there's a break. There's a break
Yeah.
in data versus experiential, um, you know, reality. And so I think people are well aware of that.
So
And
that shift,
so
Richard,
that,
if I heard you say it, the shift you used to hear was about a product and an opportunity in a trade, and Wall Street loves transactions. But you're
yeah,
saying our peer group is now hitting the room, sort of taking a step back, and for lack of a better word, hitting at macro or hitting at trends. The term
yeah,
you've used, pattern recognition,
yeah.
and
But
that requires a solution, not a product.
that's exactly right. And education and conversation, honest conversation, intellectual curiosity with one another. This is the shifting dynamic. And so, I was in an RIA last week, sitting with them in their office, and I said, tell me about business, how's things going? What are you focused on? And they were sharing a number of different things, and great firm, and they're focusing on business matters. And then, I said, well, tell me about your clients. What are they focused on? And they're like, inflation. And I'm like, okay, good. You're hearing that. So what is the solution? What is the solution? Do you lean into, you know, uh, you know, inflation-linked bonds, or do you lean into gold, or what are you doing, right? You're going to problem resolution based, immediately versus exploring the sensation and how they're feeling about it, how they're experiencing it, how they're thinking about it. And I think that that's one of the biggest pieces that a great advisor can elicit from a client in a relationship dynamic. It's not just, I need to solve all problems for somebody. It's really around evoking, more information and how the client is thinking about things and what they are possibly considering. And I think that that's the crucial conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah, say that
Um,
again, because that is the crux.
right.
It's
So
the
it's being able to pull the thread a little bit, right? It's not, it's as soon as you recognize problem, it's not go to solution because you're so smart, right? It's about, let's really discuss it. What are you tapping into? What are you feeling? How are you thinking about it? How how is it affecting your finances? And really getting the client to tell you what they're thinking about, because I suspect that more and more clients are actually looking at Bitcoin, and they're probably asking the questions, and they're listening to pods like, you know uh, Jesse's, and Andy's pod on scarce assets, or whatever they might be listening to. They're gathering information and they're forming an opinion. And so we need to allow our clients, in many respects, to tell us a little bit more about where they're getting educated on it, how they're thinking about it, what actionable steps they might be taking or considering taking, because that helps close the door on the threat. But it also, isn't that the goal of every great financial advisor, is that they are helping a client become self-sufficient, in many respects, that they're overcoming, their challenges, and collaborating with you to achieve solution. And so it's more relational in my
Mm-hmm.
mind because the challenge is unique and causing some material pain, and so you need to invite that exploration with the client a little bit further. But,
That's perfect. The so we spent 2/3 of our half hour or so talking a little bit about us and about the landscape, the advisor, and how they will address Bitcoin. What do you think about hitting up a little bit of back to Bitcoin 101, like why Bitcoin, and just share some nuggets,
yeah.
that will make it more accessible, and like maybe from your experience, if someone said, why Bitcoin? What are the 2 or 3 things that differentiate it and make it a winner? Just like really tight, anything that you think has resonated with people or even with you.
Um, well, maybe I'll take a step back and just share a little bit about my journey, right? Steeped inside of wealth management space, I've always been concerned deeply about the national debt and deficit spending and debasement of our currency and all of those implications, because it has downstream implications to the things that matter most to me, my children, right? And we have a duty to try to leave things better. Um, that's a human dilemma, and I think we all share it. We have a responsibility to try to leave things better for the next generation and for others. And that service, elevates mankind. And I don't want to get too philosophical, but I believe that at my core. And so I've always been concerned about the deficit spending and money printing and endless debts and things of that nature. That really has profoundly bothered me from a financial systems and financial services perspective, and how it relates to my family and my neighbors and people in my community around the world. So that being said, uh, I was asked one time, I was leading financial Schwab Wealth Advisory group, and I had somebody come in and talk to me, and they said they were interested in in potentially, making a sizable allocation of their own portfolio. This is a person in the industry that reported up through my organization, and I immediately dismissed them, Mark. And largely because everything that I fed, certainly was aware of Bitcoin, but I didn't do any work on Bitcoin. But everything that I was fed was, this is internet funny money type of stuff, right? Dismiss it. It's been tried. It's never, really had traction. And so I dismissed it with, this individual's decision, with my sage advice, which is to take a pass. And that was just ill-informed, and that bothered me. I don't like, having a reaction that is unsound and somebody making a decision or not making a decision based off of that. And so I got committed. I went down the path. I read this book, The Bitcoin Standard, and to me, it's one of the finest books that has ever been written. And if you are a student of history or a student of economics, and you haven't read it, I highly encourage you to do so. I think one of the things that really stood out to me is the profound component of scarcity as it relates to any investment that is out there. And that just stuck with me. And scarcity, and I'm thinking, okay, that's true scarcity of something unique is where great wealth is, and it's how we all ultimately place value and aspire to be able to have our assets in truly scarce things. The second component for me was probably the monetary policy of Bitcoin, which is, it's been said multiple times. I'm certainly not coining it myself, but it's absolutely exquisite. When you think about how simple it is and how set in mathematics it is, you start to understand that, why is monetary policy something that is constantly changing and evolving and is a moving target, and people are constantly playing this game of guessing where other people might be going? Why can't monetary policy be set in something that we can all agree upon, which is mathematics and human nature, as well, right? Which is, that you want that consistency, and you're never going to debase yourself. And so, if you know those types of things, and you look at the monetary policy of Bitcoin, you just sit back and you go, oh my God, it's an epiphany. So scarcity one, monetary policy two,
and certainty.
Was it for me?
So that last part in particular, having gone through 2022 at a digital asset firm and having to answer questions about SBF and all the other, jokers that were in our industry early, and then washed out in what I call the digital asset default cycle, leaving the performance of Bitcoin sound and proven. The word integrity kept coming up, Rich, and coming from English major background into finance for the last 35 years, I think the two are together. You have to define terms. And I love the term integrity, because when you brought up monetary policy, to me, having an integrity of policy is critical for monetary policy, where it performs to expectation regardless of time or circumstance. And then, so we're going to go, that was one definition. We promised definitions and nuggets on this call. The other reason why this is important is because money, one of the solves that money's done, per Mises and others that have written on it, is that it solves for the bargain of common wants and needs. So imagine if you have money that changes a monetary policy, and money is supposed to be the bargaining chip that normalizes exchange across millions of goods and services across borders. If that changes, it then changes, it's multiplied. It's why inflation, the changing of the price structure, actually brings stresses, like we saw in the 70s, which I was a young kid in the 70s. It was really fun. If I was a parent trying to manage stuff in the 70s, it wasn't that fun for people. It wasn't fun for people in Northern Africa. It wasn't fun for people in Southeast Asia. I mean, it was a very tumultuous time. So when we see the integrity of our monetary system loosen, or lose its integrity, we're going to see things like we've been seeing recently, which is dislocations, unrest. It is structurally destabilizing. And so I love the fact you brought that up. It's one reason why I think Bitcoin is up 10%. And then, I think, Rich, our studio's cueing us on what we want to do before we wrap up. And so I'll kick it back to you by, giving the audience an idea about what to expect going forward from our call. But I'll end it with saying there's a lot more behind Rich's and my decision to join Onramp and help with multi-institutional custody, which is critical for this unique asset. And we want to have some fun on it. We want to drop some nuggets about it so that you can hopefully get closer to what we think is a really meaningful opportunity.
Yeah. Well said. And to maybe put a bow on it, just want to say thank you for joining us. Please join us again, because we're going to be having some guests that are coming on from all sorts of different backgrounds and fields, and talking a little bit about Bitcoin and how they might integrate it into their business, or how they might help your business think about integrating Bitcoin and adding value. I shared earlier, right? Bitcoin is both a threat and an opportunity. And I very, very much believe that. And I think, in my heart of hearts, I want people to as entrepreneurs or as people who are serving the general public. My hope is that, and I think it's our shared hope, is that you get intellectually curious about it, you develop a thesis, and that you recognize that there is enormous opportunity for you to not only serve your clients incredibly well by leveraging Bitcoin, but also win in the marketplace, not just from price performance, by attracting new clients and keeping other clients, and creating differentiators of your business in the marketplace. And we'll bring people that will help, maybe open your eyes to ways to attract new clients, and keep existing ones that you've worked so hard for, and those relationships really matter. And so at the end of the day, we're thrilled to be with you. We're eager to help, everybody make the transition. And if you've got questions or thoughts, you're more than welcome to reach out to Mark or I by dropping a note. We'll be sure to get in touch with you, and open up a dialogue that's tailored to what you're trying to achieve. So thank you for joining Onramp Bitcoin this morning. You can visit our website at onrampbitcoin.com, and we are thrilled to make the connection with you. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the show. If you found the information valuable, please share the episode with a friend or leave a rating on your favorite podcast app. All the links we discussed in today's show will be in the show notes inside your podcast app. Before we finish, a quick reminder that Onramp Media is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing should be construed as investment or legal advice. Regardless of where you are on your Bitcoin journey, we'd love to hear from you. Visit onrampbitcoin.com/contact to schedule a consultation with one of our private client advisors.